Welcome back to Conversations on Reference. My name is Simon Aristeguieta. And this week we're going to talk and converse about how to search for academic information, how to search for peer review journal articles. Okay, there are many ways that we can get to peer review journal articles. We can search the open web. We can use any of the search engines, and we can search for topics using keywords or maybe titles or maybe even author's name, and we can get to some peer-reviewed journal sources. The other way that we can get that specialized literature, the academic literature, scholarly communication, is through Google Scholar. Google Scholar, of course, is a search engine that is free and is available to everyone, and you can search for peer-reviewed journal sources. If we have access to academic databases, then through our universities or any other organization, through our libraries, public, school, and academic libraries, then we can search specialized databases. First, let me define what we mean by peer-reviewed journal sources. Anyone can publish anything in the internet, or even anyone can publish a book. But peer-reviewed journal sources means that whatever we publish have gone through a process of being revised and reviewed by experts in the field. For example, if I write a manuscript on library science and I do some research and I want that research published, I have to send it to a journal, and the editor of the journal will send that manuscript to 2 or 3 experts who will review what I have submitted. Okay, and then the editor will provide me with the feedback from those reviewers, and I will have to take into account their observations and to make undo the corrections that they have asked me. Okay, or the additions that the reviewers has asked me. That process, the peer review process, is very important because it assures a certain amount of assessment of what I want to publish. So they assess my research, and they review it to see if it is sound research, if it is a good research, if it is reliable research, and research that can be disseminated in the academic community. That process then offers a level of safety that what you're reading has been gone through a process of reviewing that the open web does not offer. Okay, this is not a peer review podcast. I can say whatever I want to say in this podcast. I can write anything in the net or in social media that nobody is reviewing. But if you want your work to be revised and to be disseminated in the academic community, then you have to go through the process of peer review. It can be a serial or it can be a monograph too. And for those who are part of the academic world, and most of you are when you went to the university, or if you are going to the university, or you're going through your high school, then you need to look for peer review sources. They can be serials meaning magazines, journals, or they can be monograph, meaning books. That's a real key. So when you do a search on Google, you will find everything there. Okay, but you have to make sure that you find peer review sources. Next week, we'll talk about assessment, how to assess information, how to assess electronic information. Well, what we're talking today about the peer review process as the first step of assessment. Okay, so if I want to write something that has validity, that is reliable, and that is information. My sources will be peer review sources. In the case of library science and other social science, the formal channel of communication is the peer review journal. In other disciplines, it may be a peer review monograph. Okay, so Google Scholar is a good place to search for information, but if we have access to academic databases, and there are many, and there are many providers like Wilson, Web of Science, EBSCO, ProQuest, JSTOR, and so on. Those are providers of many, many databases. Okay, databases have very similar interface with the user, but we have to have the tools to be able to retrieve in a very efficient way. The first thing we have to learn is to use the Boolean operators. Okay, the Boolean operators are and, or, and not, and they are used either to expand or limit your search. So that's the first key. The second key is that we can combine those Boolean operators in the different access points that are available in the database. So what are the access points? Well, those are the searchable fields. There's one that is, all text, you can search all text. Or you can limit your search to a field such as author, title, abstract, keywords, year, publication name, descriptors, and so on. The second step, or maybe it's the first step that we have to be clear, is when we have an idea, I recommend that you write down that idea. You have a topic, write down the topic, and then write down a research question. What is what you want to know? Okay, if you write it down, you will be able to visualize it, and you can go through a process of conceptualization when you have these fuzzy ideas in your head and you want to bring them to the real world. And once you write your ideas and you come up with a research question, you can identify what would be the keywords for your first search. In this case, you can use just a browser. You don't have to go to a specialized database, and see what kind of information you get there, and what ideas you get, and what other keywords and descriptors and authors you are getting there. Once you do that, then you jump to the academic databases that I mentioned before, and start using that the Boolean operators to either expand or limit your search, and the different access points which are also called searchable fields. Okay. Nowadays, there are some AI applications that you can use to search for scientific information, for academic information, for scholarly information. And they are very effective too. They act as a reference interview that you would have in an academic library. What I recommend is that if you use any of the artificial intelligence applications that are out there to search for information, is that once you have selected those sources that are relevant to your need, to your information need, is to get into the academic database and look for that resource and see if that resource really exists. And read the abstract and read the whole paper to see if really it's going to work for your information needs. Another important thing is that when you do searching of academic databases and you get maybe 20, 30, 40, or 60 sources, you won't be able to read them all. So maybe you have to limit your search. Maybe you have to combine those keywords or those descriptors to make your search more limited and get less resources. Also, you don't have to read the whole paper. You read the abstract to see if that is something that will address your information need. Almost all databases have like a special type of search that once you have gotten a paper that works for you, you can direct the database to search for similar papers. That's a great advantage. Of course, that's what we used to do with bibliometrics and citation analysis. We used to look for papers who share the same references. The more reference they share, the more similar the papers were. Well, you don't have to do bibliometrics or citation analysis to do that. Now you can go, now the database, the electronic database does that for you, okay? So my recommendation then is to select a topic, then come up with the research questions. Then the third step would be to identify those keywords. Then the next step would be to do an open search in the open web using any of the search engines that are publicly available. And then with more information, you go to the academic databases and do your search there. You can also, as I said, you can use AI that serve as a great tool for helping you search. In terms of the several techniques that we can use to make the search more relevant, I said we have to get into Boolean operators and, or, and not. We have to understand searchable fields, and we have to see that databases, in the case of peer-reviewed journal sources, they have an index. So an index is a good place also to find the descriptors that are assigned to each submission, to each article, and we can use those also to make our search more relevant. So there are many ways that we can use to enrich ourselves with the correct information, with information that have authority. And what I want to explore next week is how we assess electronic information in the open web and in the databases. I won't have to get too much into that because, as I said, when we use academic databases, we are already looking at peer-reviewed sources. That's an advantage. But if we're searching the open web and we'll get many hits, how can we tell to our patrons, to the users, if that information that we are providing has any authority? If that's reliable and pertinent and relevant information. That's the key. Because as we know nowadays, we can get trash and garbage information. We can get misinformation, disinformation, and even political propaganda. So making sure that the information that we are providing to our users is a good information, I think is one of the main responsibilities of ourselves as librarians. So next week, we will be talking about assessing information, assessing especially electronic information. We have to recognize that in today's world, in this information society, in this society of knowledge, most of our sources are electronic sources, okay? We have to be very careful with social media, and that's something that in the future, I'm going to talk a little bit about social media too. Okay, I think that's enough for today. Thank you for listening to Conversations on Reference. My name is Simon Aristeguieta, and I will see you next week.